Bonnie and Hopa Mountain with the Indigenous Scholars of Promise program for being so helpful and kind. My art mothers Sandra, Kimberly, and Chelsea for reading my essays and supporting my work. The staff at the Holter Museum and the Lewis and Clark Library for giving me a home away from home my entire high school career. Incredible teachers like Helen Bosch who rekindled my passion for the sciences, which sparked my interest in applying for dual degree programs. Also a lot more people that I'm sure I'm forgetting. And especially my birth giver Tressie for giving me life and being the best mom ever. Love her. What a year though. It's been, as my father Jerry Garcia would say, a long strange trip. Time to take a nap. So the poem that Delaney had selected tonight, and which she read in 2015 when she was a community poetry reader, is The Powwow at the End of the World by Sherman Alexie. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after an Indian woman puts her shoulder to the Grand Coulee Dam and topples it. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after the floodwaters burst each successive dam downriver from the Grand Coulee. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after floodwaters find their way to the mouth of the Columbia River as it enters the Pacific and causes all of it to rise. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after the first drop of floodwater is swallowed by that salmon waiting in the Pacific. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after that salmon swims upstream through the mouth of the Columbia and then past the flooded cities, broken dams, and abandoned reactors of Hanford. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after that salmon swims through the mouth of the Spokane River as it meets the Columbia, then upstream until it arrives in the shallows of a secret bay on the reservation where I wait alone. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after that salmon leaps into the night air above the water, throws a lightning bolt at the brush near my feet, and starts the fire which will lead all of the lost Indians home. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, after we Indians have gathered around the fire with that salmon who has 3 stories it must tell before sunrise. One story will teach us how to pray. Another story will make us laugh for hours. The 3rd story will give us a reason to dance. I am told by many of you that I must forgive, and so I shall, when I am dancing with my tribe at the powwow at the end of the world.
Really honored to be here. This community and poetry are 2 of my great loves, and for the folks that had the genius to combine them, thank you. I guess I want to start with at West Point, we all are required to take a poetry class. It's mandatory. So when you think about leadership and what this country's valued for 200 years, they will not let poetry leave the curriculum. Absolutely not. And General Norman Schwarzkopf said that was the most important class that he took while he was there to help guide him through the rest of it. And I agree with that for many reasons, but I will say that if you've ever been to the Academy on every Friday is Shakespeare recitation day for those plebes, and the mixture of Shakespeare and curse words as you forget it, as you walk around, is something that I think is pretty rare. I think for me, poetry means a lot. I think especially growing up in Helena, had a really, really bad speech impediment that was able to be improved upon to some degree, but those poetry was what gave me a voice first. ended up in front of Congress and wherever else, saying something else, but poetry gave me the voice. And so a lot of folks that care for our cause here have worked strong and hard for it. And both my poems are around suicide tonight. It wasn't intentional, but I'm one of the few people in the mental health field that I think ever swore not to be in it. I was flying back home for a friend's funeral, Darcy Zeiler, for anybody that knew her, and yeah, and she was amazing. But we'd all worked so hard, the family had worked so hard, and we lost her anyway. And I swore, okay, I'll do anything else, but I'm done with the mental health field. And I think God loves to hear our thoughts on what we are never going to do again, and then take note and say, okay, 15 years, that's exactly what you'll be doing. So my first poem is, and I want to say that in every poetry reading I've ever been at, someone's required to read bad poetry. It's just how it goes, and I'm honored to be that person. Tonight, somebody needs the homegrown bad poetry that just stinks. And thank you for the choice and the honor. This one is Shooting Star. It was a poem that Eric Bryson and I wrote in August of 1994 for our friend Kent Reynolds, and was trying to memorialize. About a week before this happened, we were at Holland's Lake. There was a meteor shower over the dock, and it was, you know, it was up in the sky and in the lake, and I guess that there was just this deep feeling of sadness. And came home to hear that our friend Ken was lost. So that was where this poem came from. I sat awake on the dock last week, watching the meteor shower, enthralled by the beautiful comet's death and all of its radiant power, running across the darkened stage, spilling forth desire. I wish I had more time to watch that little ball of fire. For you filled my life with so much hope as you rushed on through the night, your heart defined a blinding courage, even to your final flight. You were such a brilliant contrast above the coal black pine. I'll always treasure your memory in this brighter heart of mine. Your fleeting path across the sky was all to no avail, just a ship cast in the sea with a tattered, lonely sail. That ship set sail with the hand of God to make it through the night. Somewhere along that lonely path, it lost its guiding light. Just like this ship, these rocks from the heavens shoot forth with awesome power. But surely, after all that's left, is the memory of the shower. Thank you. This next one with the Naked Words crew that I used to go to poetry readings with for years and years. They always yelled at you if you didn't have something new, in very derisive, horrible ways. So it helps you always get something new. This one's new. It's dedicated to my friend, retired Navy SEAL Commander John Scott Hannon. Passed away on February 25th. Just an amazing guy. We were blessed to have him for about 5 or 6 years in Helena after he finished up his service. Just gonna miss him. So this is called Water Molecules. And I live in Remini. Scott lived in Colorado Gulch and his family's property. So I wrote this one about Remini because he's gone and I can do what I want. Water molecules. They're 1.7 septillion 10 to the 21st, H2O molecules in a single drop of water. The headwaters of 10 Mile Creek burst from the snow-gorged soil between Red and Lee Mountains. Born with a kinetic momentum, individual character, and packed purpose, the water molecules careen off the steep slopes like a cougar lunging towards a young fawn. Past melting snow, beds of fallen pine needles, and early spring wildflowers. Each water molecule's hydrogen atoms bond with surrounding water molecules. The bonds are strong, but constantly shifting, breaking, and reforming as the water plunges, moves, and dances over the rocks, fallen logs, and through the evergreen forest. Water molecules pile on top of each other in rippling, shimmering sheets of translucence and frothy white beneath the blue sky above. Each of these individual water molecules could not move on its own. Singly, they have little capacity for trajectory and direction. Their path stops at the first obstacle, be it as small as a blade of grass or grain of sand, but together they bounce, slide, and ripple across everything in their path, pulling, pushing, supporting, dunking, and diving with each other across the continent. The writhing waves of water churn through the alpine hamlet of Remini and settle into the prickly pear valley below, running by subdivisions and below streets, wrestled and stirred by brook trout, frogs, and water bugs, meeting the Missouri and beginning the path to the Mississippi, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic Ocean, where they will rise again and begin the process again. None of these molecules knows where they're going. None knows where they've been, but they will get there together because of each other. Thank you.
It is a pleasure to be here, and I've loved listening to all of the poems, and Richard Hugo is one of my very favorites, and if I ever were to tattoo words on my body, which I think is a bad idea, I think other tattoos okay, but don't put words on, they would be the words that are on Richard Hugo's gravestone, and they are from a poem of his, and those words are, "You and I sing tiny and wise, and could, if we had to, eat stone and go on." And that's it. No, just kidding. I was just inspired to share that. So I have spent some time with aspiring writers in Helena over the past year and a half that we've been back. And last spring, I had the great privilege to go into several of our 4th and 5th grade elementary school classrooms at 3 schools across the district, Bryant Elementary, Jim Darcy, and also Jefferson. And I got to work with Luke Fershong with his 4th graders out at Jim Darcy. And I mean, he's an all-right guy. He's pretty amazing. And we, out of that project, so I spent about 6 weeks doing creative writing workshops with students in those 3 different schools. And out of that project, we published a book, and it is this book called Words, Kids Plus Words Equals This Book. A title voted on and created by students. And I actually, I had a few extra copies, and I put them on the table over there. So if anybody would like to take one home, please feel free. So those are available to you over on that first table that you came in. So first come, first serve. It's really, really great writing. So what I'm going to share with you tonight, the model that I use in these writing workshops with young people is a model that I stole from a program that I taught for in Austin, a program called Badger Dog. And the model was very simple. It was just called read, write, share. So the first thing we would do is read a poem or a short piece of writing together, and then we would write, and then we would share what we wrote, which is a pretty good process, honestly, for writing. If you're like, what do I do? How do I write? Do that. Do that. So This poem, we would talk about kind of personification, and this is one of my favorite poems to share with young people, and it's not written for young people. I also draw that line, I always share with them poetry that is not written specifically for a younger audience. This is by Stacy Casarino, and it is called Firework. The day my body caught fire, the woodland darkened. The horizon was a sea of maids rushing to piece me back into a girl. Out of the girl came yellow flowers, came stem. You never happened, they said. The meadow was a narration of lessness. Inside the corral, horses fell from the impact of lightning. They broke down. I heard gunshots in my sleep. I was a keeper of breath, of hay. I walked a field collecting bones. You can build a house out of bones. You can stand at the doorway, quarreling with your legs to enter, or run until you turn to ash. So I love this poem, and I would share this poem with my. I love that poem, and I love talking to people about that poem, and it's really fun to talk to young people about that poem. And one thing I found talking to young people is that they always find things that you don't expect, and they latch on to those amazing moments of what you can build out of bones, and the explosions, and how, I mean, they really focused on that rushing to piece me back into a girl. And we talked about how you can be both firework and girl at the same time. And so I'm also going to read to you a couple of poems that were inspired by that one. So these are all by fourth graders who are leaders in our community as well. This is by a fourth grader at Bryant Elementary, and it's called Stirring the Pot. It was as if I couldn't move, being told I was not a human. But when I looked over, all I could see was a hopeless mixture stirred in the darkness by a wood spoon. So what might I be? Pushed around on a hot surface, watching what my life had become, and all I could do was think. I can't push them back or turn off the heat. Just sitting there, thinking about everything. What might I be? Thinking of my life. As the spoon stirs, so does my life. I could not explain. It's by a young lady named Sasha. Yeah. I read poems by these guys last year too, but they were a different inspiration, different ones. So, you have a special treat for this next one because the author of this one happens to be in the room, happened to just join us, and her name is Margot Miskevich, and she's sitting on School Board Trustee Luke Miskevich's lap over there, over yonder. And I just so happened, coincidentally, to teach a workshop in my daughter Margot's class. And she wrote this poem called Wildflower. I remember the day the wind was blowing by, blowing most of me away. I woke up to people all around me, picking me and throwing me back into the wind. I see different things, and places, and people. I have beautiful colors, and my imagination is wild. One more. This one has my new favorite word that I try to incorporate into conversation as often as possible, and I hope all of you take it and use it as often as possible. I hope it's obvious when it comes up. This poem is called Fast Subway. I am a fast subway. People all around the world step on me with their muddy, sloppy, wet, nasty feet. Also, I don't get cleaned very often. At least, I get to see the tall buildings. In cities, sometimes I get sick or I get headaches. All the time, it is so many turns, and you zip by them so fast, it makes you have butterflies in your underpouch where the luggage stays. Please incorporate underpouch into your daily.
I've chosen the poem River Kin, K-I-N, which is written by Elizabeth Doan, and she was also the editor of the magazine. And the more I read her poem, it's like all good poetry, I think. The more you read it, you get more nuance to it, and you get further understanding of it. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So this is River Keen by Elizabeth Doan. I'm old, I have to use these. The young woman standing on my banks, long walnut hair, soles of her feet darkened with mineral dense dirt, azure eyes that mirror myself. I have seen many strange things. A cow elk that has twins every spring, piebald whitetails that drink from me. This is not my doing, nor my will. Never would I have carved such a duplicate. I know what bloodline she's from. I cannot say what generation. Creeks carry their heritage through her limbs. I wonder why she doesn't know her ancestor's name. Her ancestor went by Jerry. Emotions ran leagues deep. Thoughts were crisscrossing currents. Jerry had more wisdom than she had years. Oh, the older one was a river all her own, with secrets. Like Jerry, I hear her whispering thoughts through my thundering voice. Does she know how alike she is? Tempered crashing like Morel Falls, aspen bark skin that turns the color of kinnick in July sunlight. Do I even have answers for her? This one, the young one, she too has seen more than her years, but she has memories to prove it. She is a river all her own, questions rushing behind her eyes. Not in the longest of icy slumbers would I have imagined either on my banks. What a shame they never met. Never could I have carved such a replica. One of the things I found interesting in this is I thought, what in the world is the color of kinnick? And so I Googled it. That's what you do. And what came up, and I don't know if this is what Miss Doan meant, but the University of Iowa has a very infamous football stadium locker room where the visiting team's locker room is painted completely pink as a, for whatever reason. So I thought maybe that's what she means, is that the skin turns pink in the sunlight. But I don't know. So hopefully she will continue to write. I think she's a great little poet, and she's following in the footsteps of Norman Maclean. Thank you.